What's up, everybody? Orange and Blue today, Monday edition. Cecil Lammy, Andrew Mason, and we're on our way somewhere to Alabama in the 2025 Reese's Senior Bowl, where we have gone for years and years and years. We're going back to Alabama. We're going back to the Senior Bowl. So, Mace, we had to do this show on Sunday night so we could put it out Monday because we are somewhere. I'm probably driving right now. You're probably flying still right now.
Or if I'm on time, I'm probably picking up my rental car right now.
Okay.
And preparing to start a drive.
3 hours.
Somewhere on the Gulf Coast. Head to Mobile.
Not 10 inches of snow.
My first Mobile experience, my first Senior Bowl experience was 21 years ago. And you know what? It's nice to not be talking about the quarterbacks.
Fantastic.
Especially because the quarterbacks this year, not the best bunch.
Not the best bunch.
Beyond Cam Ward.
Yeah, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders. And that's what we'll start the conversation. We'll get to more Broncos-centric with Cam Scadaboo and Harold Fannin. But just in this brief preview of what we're looking forward to, Shedeur Sanders did not participate in the Shrine Bowl practices, and he's not going to play in the game. Cam Ward, now per Jim Nagy, who had said on Twitter that, they do not invite players to not participate, although Najee Harris just did that a few years ago, not due to injury. He just wasn't going to play. But Jim Nagy did emphasize on social networking to say, we invite players to play, not to just show up and talk to teams. So if we see Cam Ward, and if Cam Ward performs as well as he could with his physical talent, which is off the charts, Mace, we could be hearing more rumblings about him being number one overall rather than Shedeur.
Well, it's going to depend how he interviews as well.
Yes.
That's the part that we don't see. It ends up being the most important aspect of it. Take Shedeur Sanders. I mean, he did interviews here in Frisco, Texas, in advance of the Shrine Bowl, but he didn't practice. But basically kind of accomplished what he needed to based on all indications of the interviews appeared to go pretty well.
Right.
For Shedeur Sanders with these teams. Doesn't surprise me. He's a high football IQ guy. He processes quickly. He knows how to study film. He knows how to break things down. So it doesn't surprise me that he would do pretty well in that environment.
Right.
And certainly he has the requisite leadership attributes. But now it's going to be Cam Ward's move. Chance to show what he has. And particularly for the Tennessee Titans sitting at the top of the draft, running an iteration of the Shanahan-McVay offense, of course, with Brian Callahan coming over last year from Cincinnati, where he worked under former Sean McVay assistant Zach Taylor. You've got to have a high intellectual capacity, and that's and a quick processor. I think they feel confident in that with Shedeur Sanders. We'll see how they feel about Cam Ward, but confident enough to make him the number one overall pick. That's the big question, especially when you got someone like Travis Hunter sitting out there, even though he's not a quarterback.
Yes, and that's the national talk, the local talk. When we go to these games, we'll look over the rosters and we'll say, I want to see that guy, I want to see that guy, I want to see that guy. Sometimes it works out and it goes, wow, that guy lived up to what we thought. Sometimes it does not. Remember Jaron Hall?
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm interested in him as a mid-round quarterback. We got to him, BYU quarterback, who was small like Russell Wilson when Russ was with the Broncos. We got to the Senior Bowl. We saw Jaron Hall the first day, and I was like, nope, he's not it.
Yeah.
So I am ready to be excited and hoping that my heart doesn't get broken by Harold Fannin, the Bowling Green tight end, who had 1,500 yards receiving in a year, in a season, not as a career, but in a season, he had 1,500 yards receiving. Played in the MAC, bunch of action, but against Penn State, he had 130 yards, and it is on YouTube. Watch this video, watch all of our videos, and like and comment and all that. But then, at your leisure, watch Harold Fannin versus Penn State. I know you're going to come away impressed. Mace, I really hope, I'm praying that Harold Fannin lives up to my very high expectations this week at the Senior Bowl.
There's a legitimate argument that day, Tyler Warren of Penn State was not the best tight end on the field.
Bingo.
In Happy Valley, that it was Harold Fannin Jr., and Fannin was a huge reason why that game was close. Fannin was also a huge reason why it was close for Bowling Green when they went down to Texas A&M 2 weeks later and lost by 6 points. He had 145 yards in that game. So something that you always look at when you've got group of 5 players going up against, now it's the power 4, but when they're going up against those power conference foes, is are they productive? And when you see Harold Fannin in 2 games against power 4 opposition, 19 catches, 282 yards, 2 touchdowns, about 15 yards of reception, that tells you he's got the goods.
Yep.
Against higher level competition, which is why I'm still curious to see how he looks this week. I'm not expecting to be disappointed.
Right. Not expecting to be disappointed. And as a tight end, we'll get to see him in some blocking drills. We'll get to see him in receiving drills. And we will get to see if Harold Fannin is worth. Some are putting him in the first round. Mace, I will not do that, but I will acknowledge this. If Harold Fannin is a second round pick, and we've seen it before, tons of players, the Senior Bowl can bump you 30 picks. Never really more than that. But Carson Wentz, when he was at that game, he was seen as a second-round pick. Then he was number 2 overall. Harold Fannon's not going to be number 2 overall. But if he's seen as a third-round pick or a second-round pick, a great day in Mobile, people could put him at 32. People could put him, hey, you have a nightmare if the Chiefs win the Super Bowl? What if the Chiefs win the Super Bowl and draft Harold Fannin to replace a retired Travis Kelce? That's nightmare fuel right there. So I'm just saying.
Why are you doing this to me?
Because
didn't you see the show that we ran yesterday?
The live show?
Which actually we didn't, in recording this, that was, for us, that was
like 10 minutes
like
ago.
a few minutes ago that we finished this.
I took off my hat.
I'm not there yet.
You're still not over it. But I just want to alert people that the Senior Bowl, while just an all-star game to some, it can move you up or down around. Just take note of that.
Yes.
Harold Fannin might be a first-round pick.
It's possible that we're talking about Harold Fannin in the way that I talked about Jonathan Taylor in the 2020 draft, where it's like, boy, I hope Kansas City doesn't take him.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't. They took Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Now, would they have been better off taking Jonathan Taylor? Yeah, I mean, but
they're still pretty good without him.
Like, they've been fine without him.
Yeah.
If they had Jonathan Taylor, well, probably Jonathan Taylor wouldn't be on the team anymore because they would probably not been able to keep him.
Sure.
Or maybe he'd be about to leave because he would have been a late first-round pick, fifth-year would have been this year on the fifth-year option, and then would have been somewhere else after this season. So, of course, maybe he might have helped the Broncos because maybe he would have dropped a potential touchdown in a game against the Broncos like he did for the Chiefs, or the Colts, I should say.
He did for the Colts,
so there you go.
Right.
But yeah, Harold Fannin Jr. in Kansas City would be a problem.
That would be a problem. What else would be a problem, or a problem that needs to be solved, is the Denver Broncos running back situation. Cam Skattebo is going to be at the Senior Bowl, and it looks like they say the rosters, day before the Senior Bowl, the rosters haven't been released. I'll save my rant for another time. We're going to see Devin Neal, buddy. We're going to see Devin Neal.
Chance to see.
The player that I always say, if you're not getting Genty, you get Devin Neal.
Well, let's go back to the game against CU, where
amazing,
he absolutely took control of that game.
Yes, dominated.
All respect to Travis Hunter. That day at Arrowhead Stadium, Devin Neal was the most impactful player on the field.
Yep. Some Kamara vibes from Devin Neal. So if you're the Broncos, you're going to see a fan favorite in Cam Skattebo from Arizona State. Jake Plummer tweeted at you.
He responded to our live show talking about Shrine Game practices on Sunday, and about advocating for drafting his fellow Sun Devil product, Cam Skattebo.
Yes.
I have been a little bit skeptical on Skattebo. I am willing to be impressed.
Yes.
So you always go in with an open mind on these things. Like, you were sold on Jaron Hall, and then you saw Jaron Hall change your mind for the negative.
Very much
That's the thing. You go down to I like to be positive on this. I want to be impressed. Show me something.
Show me something.
Yeah.
Also, because we'll talk Big 12 running backs, Ollie Gordon's going to be there.
Okay.
From Oklahoma State, who also was a problem this past season in college. So some very talented runners. The guys that stand out, of course, are Cam Skattebo, Devin Neal and Ollie Gordon, in addition to others here as well. People will also ask about who are the other tight ends besides Harold Fannin.
Gunnar Helm.
Gunnar Helm is the one.
Yeah.
Was he at Valor? He was at Cherry Creek. Double check on that for me. I did have some people locally ask me about Gunnar Helm. I see Pat
Cherry
Freiermuth.
Creek. He was a product of Dave Logan's program.
So I've had some NFL people ask me about Gunnar Helm. I see Pat Freiermuth.
Okay.
So I don't know about you, Mace, but wouldn't a Muth on the Broncos look kind of good?
I think it's pretty easy, whether it's a Freiermuth type or Harold Fannin, more of a Jimmy Graham type.
Yes.
I think it's pretty easy. All respect to the tight ends in that room, I think it's pretty easy to find some upgrades here, some long-term upgrades.
Very much so, yes.
It's the position that is probably right there. Tight end and running back, I think you're talking about being the most pressing heading into the draft, and I think the most capable of being filled in the draft. Inside linebacker, I don't know if you're finding the immediate solution there. That may be more of a free agency answer than a draft answer.
Yes.
But tight end and running back, I think you're talking about two positions that have depth and quality. And that's why we keep saying 2 and 2, as in two guys at those positions in the first 2 days of the draft and 2 more on day 3, because the class is that deep.
Yes.
With quality.
Yes, very much so.
And the Broncos roster, it's not all the way there yet, but it is at a point to where you don't have to fill a bunch of holes here, especially if you use what resources you do have in free agency properly. I don't necessarily want to see the Broncos like putting all their eggs in one basket in free agency. I want to see them spread be targeted, spread the money around a little bit. Inside linebacker, another defensive lineman. Maybe if you want to have a veteran tight end, that's something you can do. Maybe if you want to have one mid-level veteran receiver, you can, but it's not something the Broncos have to do. Like, this roster is actually in really good shape, and you can find immediate playmakers at those two positions of need, tight end and running back here in the draft. That's the thing that's exciting here, is I think you can actually find players who this year can make a difference in taking the Broncos from 10 wins to 12 or 13.
13's the number. If you're an elite team, you win 13 games.
Is it crazy to say that? They've raised their floor. I heard from players the day after the season, Quinn Minor's talking about how they feel that their floor is what they just had this past year, 10 wins.
Right.
And if that's the case, the right additions plus your young players getting experience plus another year together for the offensive line, these are the kind of things that can take you from 10 to 12 to 13. And at that point, you're talking about being a legitimate Super Bowl contender.
Yes, and away we go. By the way, not the only Colorado prospect we're going to see, because Terrence Ferguson, the tight end from Oregon, is there. I believe he was Littleton, and I believe he was Heritage. And another Oregon player, the kind of scat slot receiver, Tez Johnson, who's Bo Nix's adopted brother, will be there as well. So some Ducks to talk to, and certainly getting Bo Nix insight from his adopted brother will be fantastic.
You're right on Terrence Ferguson, by the way.
Heritage, right? Yep. Yeah, so we've got 2 Colorado tight ends to look at. Of course, in Gunnar Helm and Terrence Ferguson, Tez Johnson there.
Yeah.
A lot of Broncos storylines coming up. And we're going to do dozens of shows for you before the 2025 NFL Draft, including those from the Combine, owners' meetings, etc. We will be talking running back, tight end. This is going to turn into a running back and tight end show every day right here, Orange and Blue today.
But it's funny to talk about all the local connections here. Like, it's going to be a pretty busy week, because as we're bringing those local stories back to you at denversports.com, and then here, of course, on the Denver Sports YouTube channel, Facebook channel, etc.
Right.
So that's why we're on the road.
Do you think they need a slot receiver? And Tez Johnson, before we go, super quick, we got
Tez
a couple
is a
minutes
slot.
left. He's a slot, total slot. Because what's he listed at? Like 160?
Yes.
I'm being generous. Is he 160?
5'10", 160.
160, okay.
So he certainly doesn't fit the Sean Payton body type. But as we've often said, there are exceptions.
Okay.
Marvin Mims Jr. an exception. Brandon Cooks in New Orleans several years ago an exception.
Let me ask you this. Now, he's a Pro Bowler, so I'm not saying yes. But I just have to ask. Is drafting someone like Tez Johnson to potentially be a returner option if Marvin Mims' role grows on offense?
Yeah.
And maybe we should go back and look at Rick Upchurch and what Rick Upchurch did as he grew as a receiver. Rick Upchurch was a fantastic returner, but as he got better as a receiver, did those return opportunities lessen? Should they lessen? Because I want Marvin Mims as an offensive weapon, and if he's doing more and running more routes on offense, maybe he's a little more winded when it comes to kick return or punt return opportunities.
To answer your question,
it's no.
On kickoff returns, yes.
Okay.
He basically was not being used very often on kickoff returns. By 1978, he only had 8 kickoff returns in 12 games.
Wow.
5 kickoff, and that was year 4 for Rick Upchurch. Year 5, only 5 kickoff returns in 16 games. He didn't fall into decline in terms of his use on punt returns until his 7th season, 1981. That's when he dropped from 37 returns in 1980 to only 9 in 1981. Then in the short 1982 season, he had 15 returns in 9 games and was first team All-Pro on punt returns. So it's a little bit of a jagged line. It's not necessarily straight.
Well, and if Mims turns into an offensive star, you have to consider what are your other return options to not wear him out. Maybe that's a Tez Johnson. We're going to be there as we wrap up today's show, Mace. How excited are you for the Senior Bowl again?
Always. I was telling somebody this today. The Shrine Game practices over the weekend, the Senior Bowl practices, they always renew me. When you get to chat with the new generation, tabula rasa, clean slate. They're excited about what's in front of them. I like this time of year because it's optimistic. It's all about possibility.
Yep.
And frankly, when you start learning about these guys and learn some of their stories, like you were talking about with Luke Lachey about his passion for building Legos, right? You like peeling the layers back on a new crop of players.
Right.
Honestly, it's what I missed most in the year that was truly affected by COVID, the 2021 off season, when we had the Senior Bowl, but it wasn't the same. It was like we put our recorders onto these little
box thing,
library doll box on a library dolly, and they kind of wheeled it over. It was
But we're back, baby.
But we're back. We're here, and it's a renewal.
It is.
It's springtime, as in the NFL, as it were. Even though it seems kind of dark with the Chiefs going back to another Super Bowl. He's dark.
Leave it alone. That was last show. I can't wait to drive down the Gulf Coast from Pensacola to Mobile, Alabama today. Actually, right now when you're watching this, I just got to go hang out with this people because they said someone got hit in the nuts with a medicine ball. So now I'm curious. I'm curious about this nuts medicine ball story. We're going to go play some pool, maybe crash out. You're going to watch this video. We're traveling to Mobile. More Senior Bowl coverage coming up. Orange and blue today. The best Broncos coverage, hands down, that you will find, point blank, period, right here, Denver Sports on YouTube. But Mace, before we're out of here, how do people help us out?
Like,
comment,
share,
subscribe,
hit that notification bell
so that you never miss a vid.
I like the good timing when it's in person.
In-person timing is so good. He's Mace. Follow him on all the socials at Mace Denver. I'm at Cecil Lammy saying OBT's BFD. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. Stay frosty.